One, two, three.
Welcome to Scéalta. My name is Joe Austin. Can I remind you that Scéalta is a joint production of Fáilte Fears to Hear and Fail on Football. And my guest today is what every family wants. Some families have and other families can't get. It's a student, a real live student. So Rory Duggan, welcome to Scéalta. I hope you're
Thank you
well.
for having me. I'm good, thanks. Thanks for having me.
Rory, if I have it right, you are the Secretary of the Students' Union at St Mary's University College on the Falls Road.
Yeah, that is correct.
But you're not a Belfast man, and I want to talk about where you're from. But just let me give you part of the thinking behind the reason that we're doing this show tonight. I think it's clear that over this last period, that students who in March were seen to be really the heroes of the pandemic, and I'm not talking about those students who were nurses or doctors. I'm talking about students in general because they were helpful. They were doing food patrols. They were helping people. They were doing all of that. Have suddenly became the villains of the picture. So this increase in pandemic danger is all the responsibility of students. Now I know it's not. So that's where I want the interview to drift on to. So before we get there, so tell me about your journey to here to the St Mary's University.
Okay, so like you rightly said, I'm not a Belfast man. Far from it. I come from a small place called Atticall, which is way up in the Mourne Mountains in County Down. I'm about as much of a country boy as you're gonna get. I started off, went to primary school, secondary school, did my A levels, and the whole way through, basically, I always had a love for Irish. Was never really a sporty person, so Irish was sort of always my thing, the thing that I fell back on. Always had a very close connection with where I was from, with it being such a rural area. It was something that I always really appreciated and loved. I went from Atticall and then I began in St Mary's in September 2017. I started my primary teaching degree with Irish as my main subject, and now I am in my fourth year, which is my final year of my undergraduate degree.
What about family? What did your mother and father, what did they do?
So my mother is a finance manager for a car dealership in Uri, and my father works for the civil service. I have three brothers. I'm actually a twin. I'm an identical brother, an identical twin, and I have one sister, Vicky. She's the youngest in the house. I am the first person in my house to go to university. I'm the second youngest. My other three brothers are full-time farmers, very much into the farming. One of them's an electrician, but still a farmer full-time at the same time. One's a bricklayer, a farmer full-time at the same time. And my other brother is a full-time farmer all the time. It's an agricultural contractor, so he does farming for different people. So quite a mixed kind of a household in terms of what everyone does for their work. And I'm lucky enough that teaching was always the route I wanted to pursue. So I'm the wee boy that left Atticall and went to Belfast to university.
I said jokingly when I began, you are what every family wants. Every family wants a student. Every family wants their children and grandchildren, in my case, to be successful at university and do all of that. But it really isn't that simple. And I know from speaking to your friends that you're quite clever. You might deny that, but I know you're quite clever. And I know that your A levels were difficult, but you got through them.
It's true,
Is
yes.
coming to Belfast to be a student, is it a whole new ball game for somebody from a rural setting?
It really was. I was fortunate enough to go through education on quite a small scale. So, for example, the primary school I attended, there was only 100 people in it. The secondary school I attended was a very small secondary school, St Clement's College. It only had 160, 170 pupils in the whole school, which meant there was only 32 people in my year group. I then went on to do my A levels in another school, and obviously at A level there's smaller numbers again, and then I came from there from a small scale education into St Mary's, which again is very fortunate that St Mary's is as small as it is, because it's the type of education system I grew up in. But going from being taught in such a rural setting, you're growing up, you go to school with all the same type of people, if you want, which is not the right word to use, but you're going from that, the same people that live down the road or across the road or only up the way, to going to Belfast. And there's people in my university class from Letterkenny, from Derry, from Newry, from Lurgan, from all parts Tyrone, and it really opened my eyes. There really is such a big world out there in comparison to my wee nest that I was used to down home.
How many students are at the university?
There's approximately 850, 900 pupils.
And you say that, and rightly so, they're from every art and part.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, this is the, I think, 120th anniversary of the foundation of St Mary's this year.
Yeah.
And I know that in itself it has a fascinating history. But if you don't mind, can I ask you? I never went to university, so I'm asking these questions to self-educate as well as talk to the audience. But when you got to St Mary's, so what is the process? So do you go and then find accommodation, or do you find accommodation and then go? What's the mechanism?
So I think what most people would usually do is that they fill in their applications and send them in. And then they would usually apply for accommodation, and you go on a waiting list, which you get accepted to. Then if and when you get accepted, now St Mary's is a wee bit different, because if you go to Queen's or you go to Jordanstown or even Stramillis, they all have their own accommodation linked to the university. And when you go to St Mary's, even though it's a college of Queen's, so we're allowed to avail of the Queen's accommodation or Stramillis, but there is no sort of student accommodation around West Belfast, around the falls where the university is, like others. So you have to sort of make a decision then, okay, am I going to travel or am I going to live somewhere else in Belfast? I was lucky enough that I started university a year after my cousin, who was studying in Jordanstown. So she was happy enough. She wanted to live over by the Holy Lands in this part of Belfast. So I was able to get in there, and I was living with her. So I was sort of, I didn't have to do the whole searching process. But I know now a lot of first years from St Mary's would stay in Stramillis, which is accommodation, which is catered accommodation. And St Mary's Students' Union run a shuttle bus every day, which goes from Stramillis round the Holy Lands through Belfast and over to St Mary's. So we're able to avail of it to get to and from St Mary's.
You outlined your own family background, and I know your brothers, for instance, say that you're the one that spoiled in the house. Say that you get everything. I don't know whether that's true or not, but they say that. When you were announcing to your mother that, I know she counted down the weeks before it came to you leaving for university, but like when you're going from a small, tight-knit, rural, beautiful, I have to say, beautiful rural community, and you're heading that dirty, stinking hole called Belfast. Like, was your mother? I know your dad kept saying he'd be all right. He'd be all right. He'd be okay. But was your mother heartbroken? How did she deal with it? Was she?
I think she wasn't really worried about me, about the whole going to Belfast, meeting new people and falling in with people, because I'm the sort of person that gets on with everyone. If you come and say hello to me, I'll say hello back and chew the ear off you talking. I'm that sort of person. I go out to make friends, to meet new people. So she wasn't worried about that. I think what she was worried about was the fact that I was the first in the family to go to university. I was even though I have older brothers, I was the first to leave the house.
Yeah.
And I think she was a wee bit anxious about how excited I was to get away, that I sort of hadn't thought, oh, I'm leaving home here. Yes, I'm only gone an hour and a half down the road, but I'm still leaving home. I think then sort of at that stage, me and my mum, we became a whole lot closer, because obviously when you're not in the house 24/7, you don't see each other as much. So when I came home at the weekend, it was great. It was, Rory, how'd you get on? Give me your washing there, through the kit I got her and got everything cleared up. Sunday evening came, got to clear the cupboards, and most parents would be like, so you stop taking my food. She couldn't wait. She was like, at least I know he's going to Belfast prepared. He has everything he needs, and I'm not afraid to ask for help if I needed it. So they were both excited for me going, and sort of, I suppose nervous isn't the word, but sort of anxious that I was gonna adapt to going from such a small area to Belfast. Like when I was younger, going to Belfast was going to Newry, which is only half an hour up the road, was a big day out. So you can imagine what going to Belfast was a big thing without your parents.
I'm told that when you came back on Sunday night, you had a bag that would feed refugees. Not only feed you. And it was really like, what have you got? What have you brought back? What have you got with you? Yeah, maybe this is not the case, but I'm also told that before you were accepted in the St. Mary's, you had never been on the Falls Road.
Never. No, I'd been once just for the open day, but sure, I could have been in Tyrone or Dublin. I hadn't a clue where I was. I knew the university and that was it.
And did the reputation, which is not fair in many ways, but did the reputation of the Falls Road, did it frighten you?
No, if anything, coming from an Irish background, I was excited to become a part of it. When I've heard of Phelan Pobble before, I knew the Culterland, I'd heard of all the Irish connections, and I'd heard of St. Mary's and the reputation it had. I couldn't wait to go and be a part of it, especially going as an Irish language student. I knew I was going to the Scéalta quarter of Belfast, and I thought this was brilliant.
I know your mother, I should have said earlier on, I know your mother is going to be listening or watching this interview. So just for the record, I have to tell her that you don't smoke or drink and you're in bed every night at 8 o'clock.
At the latest.
At the latest, and that you don't go to any mad parties or bars that you shouldn't go into. So you told me to say that, so I've said it for you, said it in your behalf. You end up in St. Mary's. Was the challenge, and you mentioned, a rural setting, and you mentioned a small primary school, a smaller secondary school. So you go to St. Mary's, and there's every shape, form, and breed of people there. Was that a challenge, an adventure, or were you kind of a wee bit?
At the start, so when I got my A-level results, I didn't get accepted to St. Mary's straight away. I took nearly 2 weeks before I got my offer, because St. Mary's application is slightly different than every other university. You apply directly to the university. You don't go through the whole UCAS system, which other universities use. So it takes that wee bit longer for them to look at your results and decide, okay, we're going to offer him a place. So when I got accepted, I obviously in the meantime I knew other people who had got accepted, and I knew that there was people sort of coming from all over. I wouldn't say that it was a challenge for me, because I was quite fortunate that every summer I spend the summer in Donegal in the Gaeltacht. So I was used to going away for that short period of time and being in the company of a lot of other people. I'd say what I was worried about was maybe going into university and starting off a wee bit too headstrong. Sort of thinking, going in and trying to make friends with everyone, and maybe thinking, okay, maybe, everyone's not like me. They're not seeing this as a new adventure, a new challenge. And maybe they're like, oh no, I don't want anything to do with him. Luckily enough, that hasn't been the reception I received at all, from the whole way from first year students right through till the PGC students and staff. Everyone couldn't have been more inviting, wanted me to get involved with them.
And I know, and I'm going to come to it in a second in case you think I've forgotten about it. I know your activity around the union, around the student union. I'm going to come to that. But again, this is just for your own. Sometimes we don't see ourselves as other people see us. And you mentioned that kind of anxious to make friends. But I also was told by your friend, by a friend, that when people arrive at St. Mary's, or when they're first there, you're the first person to put the hand out to ask them how they're doing and where they're from. And if they've got a younger sister, I know that's something that you're so in a way what goes around comes around.
That's the way I look at it. Yeah, like I got accepted so well into St Mary's from people who sort of knew who I was to other people who hadn't an idea who I was, who could have just walked past me and not passed any remarks. There was no skin off their back. But the reception I got was absolutely amazing, and that's the way I think that everyone in St Mary's and everywhere else should be treated. So that's the way I like to go out of my way to make sure that everyone is feeling welcome and is happy and safe in St Mary's. Sort of return the favour.
Again, I want to ask you this, and this is something that students live with and know the answer to. But for those who are not students, or for those who have never been students, you talked about that gap between the application for St Mary's, that 2-week gap, and the word coming back saying yes, you're in. What is the anxiety level like? Just waiting on word. What is that like?
I think the anxiety for me was quite severe because I had knew other people were accepted. If we all had got our offers on the same day, you know, roughly around the same time, it wouldn't have been so bad. It was because day after day you were hearing of this person got in, that person got in, this person didn't get in, they didn't get in, but they got into this course here, and I was sort of waiting. I didn't know if I was waiting for an offer or if I was waiting for say, sorry, we're not accepting you. Yeah. And I think sort of it was the same. I had applied. St Mary's was where I wanted to go, but I'd also applied to Queen's and Jordanstown, and they were sort of the same. You know, it wasn't really the fact that it was St Mary's. It was just overall, it's just that whole anticipation of waiting. I think the fact that you have to wait the whole way from June, from you finish your exams till August 17th or whatever it was, is daunting enough without having to wait after that.
Yeah. Had you a plan B? Were you going to be a farmer?
Even if I wanted to be a farmer, I don't think they'd let me on it. I'm the person in the house that my brothers do the farming and I do the bookwork side of it. But university was always my goal. I knew even if I didn't get in after my exams, I was going to get there one way or another. I had courses in the tech looked up that I had applied to go to. I had experience lined up to go out to schools. I was going to spend time as a classroom assistant to try and build up my experience to get in. I knew that teaching was always the thing I wanted to do, and I was going to get there one way or another.
Can I ask you about, we talked a wee bit about your accommodation, but you are over in the infamous Holy Land. So, which I actually think, you know, and many of the residents wouldn't agree with me, but I think in many ways gets a bad press. But just we'll return to that in a second. So you arrive in the Holy Land. What were the conditions that met you? Was it what you expected? Was it a luxury apartment that you thought you were coming to, or what was it like?
Well, so when I put in my applications and stuff for St Mary's around April, May time, we went house hunting. Sort of, I'd been down the whole.
Tell me the we is.
Pardon?
You said we went house hunting.
This was me and my cousin that I was going to live with in first year. Yeah. Okay, so I had been down in the hall. In first year, my cousin had stayed out in Jordanstown in the halls. I had been there a couple of times in my upper sixth year, going out in Belfast, and I'd sort of had an idea of where the Holy Lands was. Never sort of been in a Holy Lands house. We had set up appointments to go and see houses, and I think I was really taken back. Obviously I'd never paid rent for anything before, so I didn't know what it was supposed to cost. But when you think that you're paying sort of anywhere from £240 up to £300 odd for some of the houses, not them all, but a lot of the houses, it would scare you.
Yeah.
I was sort of taken back that this is it's like a second home. At the end of the day, my name is down for these addresses, and it's a house that I should feel happy and safe to be in. And a lot of them, I wouldn't bring yourself over the doorstep, you know. And I think, even though I don't really want to live down, if I hadn't found a house that I was happy with, I would have travelled. there was a lot of them that I wouldn't have settled for, if you want, because of the conditions that we're in. I was lucky enough with the budget that we had when I found out what my student loan and stuff was going to be like. We found an apartment that was, it was clean, it was safe, it was standard, but it did the job, and I was happy enough with it. Decent sized rooms, dead on kitchen, decent area. So, and a lot of the houses, I can't say the same about, but there are houses there that are safe and happy. And I was lucky enough to fall in with a pretty good landlord who looked after me, and anything we needed wasn't a problem. If something needed fixed, it was fixed. If we needed a call out for something, that was done on the day. I got lucky, I suppose, could be the words, because only when I started in Belfast and started to make friends was I round in other people's houses and coming and going. And well, I wouldn't like to be staying overnight.
Did your mother come up and give it the thumbs of approval?
No, so Mama and Daddy will both tell you yourself, I'm a very domesticated person. If it's not clean enough, I won't stay in it. Like, I would say Mum and Daddy had enough trust in me that I was going to pick somewhere decent and that I wouldn't settle for second best sort of thing. So it was funny. It's a running joke that when we started first year, when people were coming around to my house, that I was probably the only person in the Holy Lands with a double cleaning cupboard that was fully stocked every Sunday. It was half a bag of food and half a bag of cleaning stuff coming up the road. Like, and every Friday before I left, the floors were mopped, hoovered.
And do you share the apartment? Are there other people in the location? Is it apartment?
Yeah, so
multiple
there was
occupant?
3 apartments in that building I was in.
And I know you don't want to talk about anybody who else is in the same building, but were you able to make? And I know you're renowned for being able to make friends with anyone, but was it a friendship, peaceful coexistence? How was it?
No, I wouldn't say so. So there was a family. We actually had a family that was living in the same building as us, and they lived on the top floor. I lived on the middle floor, and there was students on the bottom floor. I think over the whole year we might have crossed paths maybe twice, and it was just on the stairs. Hello, how are you? But there was never we never became neighbours, if you want.
Yeah. Bring you back to college. Your courses started. Did you find them difficult, or were you well within your ability range?
So you talking about going back to first year?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'd say I came out of my first class and thought, no, can't do it. Not for me. And then when I said that, the other 17 people that were in my class all said the exact same thing. So I knew then it was going to be all right. If I couldn't do it and none of them could, we were going to do it together, sort of thing. I think it was just overwhelming, the fact that my first class ever was a lecture, and it was with everyone that does primary education. And I just remember looking around and being like, oh, there's a lot of people here that I'm sort of not in competition with, but we're all sort of at the same level now, and who's going to make it and who isn't. And I was sort of thinking, God, I hope I'm one of the people that makes it.
The reason I'm asking you the question, and it'll lead on to your involvement within the union. I know people. I have friends whose children, adult children, after that first lecture or that first introduction, rang home and say, "I want to come home. I can't do this." And it kind of way, and in fairness to them, they did settle down and they did do well. But it kind of way was almost heartbreaking for the parents who have a daughter or a son at a place where they can't put their arms around them, and they can't kind of tell them. But so you realize that everybody else was in the same boat.
And not just in St Mary's, in other universities as well. My friends that decided to do other courses, we'd all came home on our first day and God, that was something else. That was not what we were expecting.
I think people, again, I'm speaking in opinions.
Apologies, I don't know what happened there.
It's okay. Don't be worrying. Tony can, I was just about to ring him. He can sort it out. So I'll pick up on where we are. He'll edit it. Don't be worrying about it. What I was about to say was that when people look at that monolithic body of students, they look upon people who are partying every night, who have the time of their life and have an extended holiday. But I think that it can be a very lonely place. It can be a place of uncertainty. If you feel that, and this is not you, this is others. But if you feel that you don't fit in, it doesn't matter how many people are in the accommodation or how many people are in the class. You feel like the loneliest person in the world. Did you encounter people who had fallen into that kind of crack in the painting?
I can't say that I noticed it when I myself was a first year, because within St Mary's, because everything is so subject specific, I was with the same people all the time. I was with the same 17, 18 people that were doing Irish. So we very quickly became a quite close knit class. And I suppose we were all, I have to say, we were all in the same boat. Everyone was sort of like, we had a group chat made by the end of the first week, and everyone was sort of participating in it. What do we do here? How do you do this? How do you do that? But when I was second year and third year, and the more involved I got in the union and sort of walking about the university, when you take a step back, you sort of do notice that there definitely is people who are sort of a wee bit uneasy or a wee bit unsure about what is going on. But that's sort of where the Students' Union comes in, and anyone that hasn't been 100% sure what they're at, or if they're a wee bit nervous or anything, that's sort of where the likes of myself and the others in the union come in, and very quickly you can see a massive change, and next thing you know, they're running for things like on the student union. They're getting involved in clubs and societies, they're getting involved in different groups that are within the university, and that awkwardness and loneliness only lasts for a very, very short period of time, if it exists at all within certain people.
Tell me about your involvement. How did the union get you? That's the word. How did they rope you in?
So I suppose it sort of came from my background. When my first school was in Clemmons, I was head boy. When I moved then to St Malachy's to do my A-levels in Castlewellan, I was deputy head boy.
Oh, you're just showing off now.
I was always the sort of person that was involved in helping with the school. And even the whole way up through secondary school, right up until fifth year, I always wanted to get involved and do whatever I could. So I think it was the same when I started St Mary's. I joined the Common Gaelic, which is the Irish Society, as an Irish student, and loved everything they were doing. They were having pizza sessions at lunchtime. You went in and just spoke Irish and got the crack. There was different culture nights in the college where we had all the musicians and dancers that were students come in and do stuff. And I just remember thinking, I was like, I want to be a part of this. Like, why not? So I ran for the Students' Union at the end of first year, and I was actually the only first year in the whole college that ran to be a part of the Students' Union. Usually it takes people a wee bit longer to build up the confidence, but I was straight in. And I ran for international officer because I knew I wanted to go and study abroad next year. So I wanted to try and do something there. I didn't get elected at the end of first year, which I didn't. I think I sort of went in with the attitude, I don't mind if I get elected or not. I wanted to run for the experience.
Yeah.
Because you had to get up and do hustings in the hall in front of everyone, answer questions, and you had to put out your campaign and stuff. So then in second year, at the end of second year and third year and fourth, and this year, I ran and was elected. Last year I was the international officer, and this year I'm the secretary. And sort of, it's not even about the role you hold in the union, it's just the fact that you know that you're part of a group of people that are there to help. They're the same people who helped me, and now I'm able to be one of the people who help others. And others in my, not just new students coming in, people in my year, people in the year above, people in the year below.
It's actually the students' union is more than just. It's not simply a trade union. It is almost like a welfare.
Oh, absolutely.
Just tell me what sort of difficulties or problems, or tell me what sort of things that you would be involved as a union member. You would be
As a
involved.
union member, so for example, last year, so there's a full-time students union president and vice president there in paid roles within the college for a 1 year contract, and the rest of us are all sabbatical officers. We do it voluntary. So I think there's 11 or 12 of us, and within all those roles, you have, for example, you have your welfare and equality officer, you have your women's officer, your Irish officer, clubs and societies, international secretary, and all those roles sort of try to cover every dimension of college life. And some of the things we would have been doing, for example, was we had the college musical at Christmas. Every Christmas, where all students get involved, an awful lot of students get involved and audition, take part in the chorus or go for a main part, have a bit of crack. You have your auditions and you have your big show. We had we run different bake sales throughout the year to try and raise funds for different things in the college, so students don't have to pay for them. We have numerous different students union nights out, or college nights out, sorry. We have a UV paint party, then we have a Halloween ball. All of the departments in St Mary's all have a Christmas dinner. They all run a Christmas dinner where they go out for dinner, and a lot of cases your lecturers will come with you. So they work to try and break that barrier between student and lecturer, that you feel more comfortable talking to them and when you're around them. Then you have the likes of your B.Ed academics officer, which is over the teacher students, and your liberal arts officer, which is over the liberal arts students. And they are there basically to support you academically. If you feel that you're not happy with something within the college with regards to grading or with regards to assignments, you go to them and they will put a case forward in your behalf. So there's always someone there to, if you need to turn for a specific reason, whether it be something worrying you or just a general concern, or you want to start something new in the college, we are there just to sort of guide you. On the other hand, then we have the physical students union and the student centre, and we have a ping pong room, we have a snack bar, and we have the green room, which is loads of tables and chairs just away from where classrooms and stuff are, that you can just come and chill out. The student union itself, it's a very casual sort of place. The president and vice president both work out of the actual union, so they're not segregating themselves away. It's just full of sofas. There's cards there. There's phone chargers. There's make yourself a cup of tea. It's just a place to go and chill. Somewhere, if you've had a lecture from hell or a class from hell, and you're just, I need to just go and relax, I need to go and wind down, or just need to go and give off about something, there's always someone up there that's going to sit and talk, whether it be someone on the union or students coming in from every year group looking tickets, or just coming in to sit and chat.
I want to take you back to the Artie call, just momentarily, that physical.
Okay.
And you talked about that small primary school in a rural setting, where your teacher was a teacher, but a family friend, where everybody kind of knew everybody else. And when you got shouted at, I'm sure it didn't happen very often to you, but when you got shouted at, it wasn't personal, and it certainly wasn't cruel. And then you go to university and you have a lecturers, and lecturers are a mixture of people. Some of them are your friends, and some of them are so full of themselves that they need kicked down the stairs, metaphorically speaking. Your relationship, do you develop a relationship with a lecturer, or are certain lecturers and their approach better than others?
Well, I think it's the same case for lecturers and teachers. It's life. You're going to have some that you like. You're going to have some that you dislike. Some of the ones that you dislike are maybe the best teachers, and some of the ones that you love maybe aren't the best teachers. Lectures wise in St Mary's, because I'm part of the Irish department, which is it's a big department in itself, but it's quite a small department on the scale of things. We have 4, maybe 5 Irish lecturers, and that's it. So we have quite a close connection with them because we're with them so often. It's not like doing any other subject in the college where you could have Joe Blogs one day and you go away up to this person who's covering you this day, and you don't move about as much. So you're with the same sort of lecturers a lot more, which means you're spending more time with them, which means you have to develop a more of a relationship with them. The other thing is that you're doing a language. They need you to speak.
Yeah.
So they, as you progress through the college, they need that speaking to become more natural and to become more fluent. So they're going to start conversations about the most randomest things. They're going to ask you where you were last night and how many drinks you had and what the crack was. And a lot of the time, yes, it's to be nosy, but a lot of the time it's a technique. It's a teaching technique.
Yeah.
And I think this is a good place to implement it, and it works quite well.
I wasn't going to bring up your social life, but seeing you brought it up, and bear this in mind, your mother is listening or watching, and your father. So the social life, this is my view of it. I think the social life around students is often exaggerated, and I don't think students should be in a convent or in a monastery. But the social life in Belfast is very different from the social life in parts of the Mournes. So, is there a temptation, to, simply speaking, to go mad when you have all these choices?
I think there definitely is, but it's the way you go about it. Like in my eyes, there's for the most part. When I started at St Mary's as a student, it was made very clear to me that I was starting off as a young professional. I was going out as a student teacher, and there's a certain reputation you have to uphold. That doesn't mean that you can't enjoy yourself. So in my eyes, yes, first year, you have your whole freshers events. You go out every night because that's what you do. You go out to meet people, you go out and see what all the clubs and pubs are like. And then from that, you set your year about where you like on a Monday night, where like on a Tuesday night. I did all that, but I still did everything else I had to. I enjoyed myself. I went for a drink after uni sometimes. Some evenings I came home and didn't leave the house, just put on Netflix, and that was me for the evening. It just depends what mood you sort of take. But I think a lot of people kind of forget that students are students. At the end of the day, we are getting up and we are going to our classes, whether it be 3 days a week or 5 days a week. We are putting in the work. You don't stay a student if you don't do the work. You get kicked out. So the amount of students you see around here are kind of, the way I look at it is they're success stories. They're able to do the work, they're able to pass exams, and they're able to go mad at the same time. And I think if you can manage the 3 of them, you're doing all right.
Right. I think you're doing fine. The reason I'm asking you about the social life, and it's not just to be nosy, but I mean, part of that is to be nosy. But unfortunately, last week we got the the sad news of a young girl from Armagh who died in England. She was a student. She had been a top of her class at her own school. She had been, I think, assistant or deputy head girl, and she goes to England. And I don't know the girl, and I don't know her family, but I know of the tragedy that she died. Is there a case that, people who are less disciplined than yourself, they go in this newly found freedom is something that they can't handle? And if that is the case, is there any safety net for them, either from the student union or from the university?
So obviously, like we said there a minute ago, students do go out. They go out and enjoy themselves. They go out and go a wee bit mad sometimes. Unfortunately, sometimes there is the case with students and other people outside of the student body that can't handle it, and maybe it doesn't work, or a tragedy like what happened last week does occur. In my time in university, unfortunately, I have known of 2, 3 students actually who have had tragedies within their own life and are no longer with us. and they were all students, and thankfully none that I know have come through St Mary's, but as a college of Queens, and I know that the support systems that are in place through St Mary's, which include the Students' Union, which include a full-time counsellor, which include every lecturer having an open door policy, you can go to them anytime, which include stopping any student in the hallway and saying, I need to talk to you a minute, which include going and making a meeting to go and see someone if you want to go a more formal way about it, which include anonymous boxes about putting in your worries, and they'll be dealt with if they're not, if they can be dealt with without including the person, which will help you make you feel better that way. I know the clubs and societies that you're involved with, the people who are over those specific clubs and societies, they keep an eye on the people. For example, like we have numerous different clubs and societies, which include all the sports teams. The members of those teams know from week to week if you're just not in full game, and sometimes it can just be a matter of I'm just not having a great day. Yeah. And other times, if that persists or whatever, there is something there, and those people do know where to go and get the support to help that student. So I think I know personally in my own year that there has been some people who have struggled with different things. I know myself, there's been days I've went into uni and just had absolute meltdowns coming towards exam season and stuff, and just what's the point? Why am I trying to do this? But with the support of lecturers speaking to you and talking through it and breaking it down, and maybe it was a day that I didn't go up to the Students' Union and I normally would have been up there, and the president or vice president or one of the other officers would have been like, oh, where's Rory at today? And maybe would have came and found me and just asked that question, is everything all right? And sometimes it could just be a matter, yeah, grand, I'm just not feeling it today. Or other times it might have been a matter with myself or other people, well, actually, there's this and this that's bothering me or annoying me. Can I talk to you about it? And the answer is always going to be yes.
So is the advice then, because there will be students that watch this program, particularly because you're on it, but is there advice that if you're having the bad day or more than the bad day, that you need to reach out? You need to say to a close friend or to an officer of the Students' Union, or to, listen, give me 5 minutes.
Yeah, I think that's the important thing. I think students are definitely working towards breaking that stigma where everyone was afraid to ask for help and you were seen as nearly weak. I think students are real great advocates at the minute for mental health and for saying, no, hold up, I might be this big fella, but if I need help, I'm going to ask for it. I think we're definitely working through that and breaking at the minute, and we just need to keep going strong and talk to people, whether it be someone in your house and you just say, look, stick on the kettle there, I need to talk to you about something, or you leave the house and you go way over to Queen's Students' Union, which I can be a full member of all Queen's services. So if I didn't want to talk to someone in St Mary's, I could take myself over to Queen's and say, look, I go to St Mary's, I am technically a Queen's student, can I talk to you about something? I don't want to talk to someone in my own union, someone that's too close to me because it's a bit personal, or I don't want them to see me as weak or whatever. Not a problem, come on ahead, let's talk about it, let's sort it out.
We have been talking for 40 minutes, believe it or not. Sometimes it goes like a click of the fingers. And I want to just conclude this interview, which I've found fascinating, Rory. I've actually found it very informative. It seems to be that every time students are mentioned on television or in the press, it's about a drunken party in the Holy Land. Now, I know that's not reflective of student life. And I know when you make a point earlier on, I know that in every grouping of people, you get people who are just crazy, and you get people who are sensible, and you get a mixture of both. How trying is the pandemic at the moment for the student body? How difficult is it to be a student? And you mentioned earlier, sorry if I can interrupt your answer, you mentioned that there has to be an element in all of this of enjoyment, that it should be an enjoying experience going to university. But how difficult is the current life of a student?
I think at the minute it's very difficult. Like, for example, I'm sitting in my room here in Belfast, just outside the Holy Lands, and before I came on this interview with you, I was just doing a bit of uni work. I am, well, taken away from the behaviour side of it, I'm very lucky that I have a laptop. I'm very lucky that I have somewhere down here. I have my own Wi-Fi here. If I was to sit at home and have this interview with you, we'd be going on and off more than once.
Yeah.
And there's no way I'd be able to do it. It's the same with my university lectures and same with the work I do. I've been fortunate enough that I can bring myself here and put myself in the position where I can do it. Yes, the university is open for the library and resources and get what you need, but you can't sit in there and talk face to face during your lectures if you need to on camera or be it in person because they're not really happening. I am in 1 day a week, which is, I think the university has seen it as a necessity, and I think it's really, really helped me. Number one, for human contact, for being in and seeing people and not locked away in here in my room doing work all the time when I'm doing the work. And number two, the university have identified that students need to be in. Yes, we are in a pandemic and they need to stay safe and all this here, but they put the measures in place to keep us safe, and because of that they're able to take us in for those couple of 3 hours every week. With regards to being around the Holy Lands, I think that the full story isn't being shown. I saw pictures on the news last week of all these students out in the middle of the Holy Lands. They were only in the middle of, this is only my opinion, they were only in the middle of the Holy Lands because the police came in and kicked them out of the houses. So if they're not letting them be in the houses where you can't see them, and then they put them all out into a street where they can be seen, obviously there's going to be a crowd of people. I was talking to a person at the weekend when I was at home, and it was actually a customer in work, and she was saying, what about all these students in the Holy Lands? I says, what about them? And she said, it's awful, absolutely awful. They shouldn't be allowed down here. Too many people in the houses and all. And the question I put to her was, how would you like it if the police came into your house and kicked people out? It says, but that's different. It's only student housing. It's not. It says, I pay my rent to the place every month. It's my name on the contract. It's my house. If I want it to have, I don't really agree that anyone should have the power to come in and kick someone out of your house. If you had family sitting in your living room and there was more than 6 of you, you wouldn't see a problem with it if it was away up in the mountains or if it was in the town where you were just sitting having a cup of tea. Says it doesn't matter what the situation is, whether you're drinking or whether you're having a cup of tea, your house is your house. It should be your property and you should be able to do what you want with it. And I think that kind of right to your own privacy in your own home and things like that there has just been taken away from you. For example, noise complaints. I know a house in particular around the Holy Lands that has 3 different houses around it, and every one of them is a group of friends that were fortunate enough they were able to get houses around each other. And a noise complaint came in, and none of them could understand where it came from. And I think a lot of these things are being done to try and push students out, when at the end of the day, the Holy Lands has been made into, it's being done as student accommodation. If it wasn't a student accommodation, you would like to think it'd be a whole lot nicer than what it is. So that's where students are going to go. And I think that they're getting a hard time because of it. I think that they have made the decision to come back to university this year. And whether you like it or not, university students are young adults. They've made the decision that they're coming down here away from their families, away from their friends, and then sometimes away from their jobs, because this is where they want to be. This is where they want to go to university and they want to be down here. And they're not being given the chance to live that life like everyone else does whenever you go back home at the weekend. And there's never any problems.
And I have to say, for accuracy, I'm on the Falls Road sitting, but I could be in any major road in any part of Belfast or in any city on the island of Ireland. And we will have people who will obey by the regulations, and we'll have people who will break the regulations. And I note that the Students' Union has issued, numerous statements calling for that minority of students to behave sensibly. We have 5 minutes, and I've got 2 questions in because you haven't stopped talking. Your plans to be a teacher, are you as enthusiastic now as you were when you were a first year?
I would say I definitely am as enthusiastic, if not more enthusiastic, now that I've had the chance to go out and teach in schools and see what it's all about. I think as a result of the whole pandemic, it's going to be a lot more challenging. But I think as a young teacher coming through, that I have a lot of things to my advantage that I'll be able to bring to a classroom, and I'm looking forward to it.
This is the last question. Well, it's almost the last question. The girl who recommended that I approach you for the interview, because I didn't know you and I was asking her what you were like, and she talked about your love of Irish. You have a very deep love of the Irish language. Where does it come from? Are your parents Kilgores?
No, so I'm the only person in my actual home household that really speaks Irish, and it's sort of, like I said at the start, I'm not a sporty type, so I don't play sports. I'm a big club man. I'm very heavily involved in the club, but from primary school and right through secondary school, I just always enjoyed it. I have a love for the language, but I had a love for everything else that comes with it: the music, the dancing, the history, the stories, and that sort of just tied me in. And sort of as I started to go through school then and was fortunate enough to be able to go to the Gaeltacht during the summer, my love for it just grew and grew and grew.
And do you find is it a social advantage to you? Do you find that it's a nearly like an icebreaker when you're dealing or talking to people?
It can definitely be a conversation starter depending on who you're talking to, especially different people that have maybe attended the same schools as me and said, "Oh, never had any time for Irish," or "I did it in this year and I wish I had kept it on." I teach Irish to adults at the minute, and some of them would come and say, "God, I really wish I had just kept at it at school," and now they're coming back because I think it's becoming more fashionable, would probably be the word.
Yeah, yeah. My granddaughter, well, one of my granddaughters is second year at McGee, and it's Irish that she's doing, and she's quite a quiet person, but she finds the language innate. Right, we've talked for an hour. Our time's up. I will probably lose my program after this conversation with you. I have to.
I could lose my university place.
No, you won't. The next time I have you on, and I'd like to interview again, but the next time I have you on is when you graduate and when you tell me how the nightmare of being an Irish language teacher, how it's wrecked your life, and how you went from quiet, unassuming young man to a drunken maniac. But anyway, can I thank you for your time? And I know you are studying, and I know you're busy. It's been a fascinating journey down the life of a student. I thought that it was something we needed to put the record straight, just because I do feel that students, on occasions, get a bad reputation. I have to tell your mother, who's also watching, that when we were doing the research for the program, we couldn't find any madness in your day-to-day life. So, Rory, from me, Garamila Melgat.
That's right.
I will see you when I see you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.